this is our Wildcats at Work kind of monthly video chat, and I'm really glad that you're able to come and join us. So we have Tyler Tichelaar. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Tichelaar.
Tichelaar. Okay. So we have Tyler Tichelaar here with us to talk about your experience in college and then some of his professional experiences. So we do have a couple of students who are on the video chat as well. So at the end, if they've got any questions, I'm willing to answer some questions.
Great.
We'll start off by talking a little bit about your major and your experiences in college. So you got your master's from NMU, correct?
My bachelor's and my master's.
Your bachelor's. Okay. So what were your degrees in?
My bachelor's degree was a Bachelor of Science, and it was in English with a minor in history. And then for the master's degree, it was in English, with kind of a focus on literature.
Nice. Was that an MFA or?
It was an MA.
MA, okay. For the students who might not be familiar, what's the difference between an MA and an MFA? What did you find the difference of?
Well, when I was here, there wasn't an MFA program. And I believe the major difference, from my understanding, MFAs tend more to be towards creative writing, whereas MAs are probably more focused on literature or writing. When I was here, it could be literature or writing.
Sure.
And also, MFAs, I believe, are usually 3-year programs, whereas mine was a 2-year program.
Okay.
But then I decided to go on and get a Ph.D.
Sure.
After that.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how long did it take you to get your PhD?
5 years.
Okay. And that was also in writing?
That was in, I got from Western Michigan University, and it was in literature. Specifically, I studied 19th century British literature as my area of expertise with the cognitive medieval literature.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool. So in medieval literature, that would be, give me some examples.
My real interest was the King Arthur legend,
Okay.
but medieval literature would also include Chaucer, for example, medieval drama, medieval poetry.
Okay. Are you involved just purely on the side? Are you involved with the Shakespeare company that's here? Shakespeare, is that considered medieval literature?
Shakespeare fall under Renaissance. And, no, but I do, I write novels about King Arthur.
Okay.
So.
All right. So what made you choose English and writing medieval literature?
I just always loved books. I mean, I always had my nose in a book when I was a kid, and I wanted to become a writer. I had a friend when I was about 9 who told me her aunt had written a book, and I think that's when the light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, people write books, that could be my job. So that's what I wanted to do. And when I got to Northern, I decided I would study literature because I wanted to be a writer. And you could do creative writing or literature. I decided to go into creative writing because I felt like I wanted to learn from the great authors of the past. I felt like they were the great authors. I wanted to learn from them. And my goal was to write a book and get it published before I graduated. And then I was just going to live off the royalties for the rest of my life. And, the dream of becoming a famous author. And that didn't work out. I did write a couple books while I was in college and send them off and get rejection letters, and decided I would go on and teach. And so I decided to go in the master's program, and I became a teaching assistant here in NMU. I taught freshman composition. I think it's English 101 still, basic composition, and found that I liked teaching. I was pretty good at teaching. And so I just decided to keep with that, and then I went off to get my PhD and became a professor for a while. But eventually, I mean, writing was always my first love.
Sure. So you said you had sent off a couple of books while you were in your bachelor's program, and you got some rejections. How did that make you feel? Like, how did you go from there? Did you keep trying, or have you? Obviously, you've been a published author.
I always kept trying. I was what I call myself a closet novelist. Most people didn't know I was writing books, other than my family and a couple close friends. But I thought I wasn't going to tell anybody, because when I was a teenager, I did tell a couple people, and they were very skeptical about it happening. I'm like, I don't care, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. So I just kept writing books and studying them out, and hoping for the best and trying to be better at writing. And so, I mean, ever since I was 16, I've been writing a book.
Sure.
So
I just wondering, trying to get some advice for students. I've had a couple of students come in, asking about publishing or how that works, and I've never been published. I'm a visual artist, not a creative writing artist.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different there. So keep on trying. That would be your suggestion, or what would you say?
Well, and I don't know if I want to get too ahead of myself, but I would say that I spent all these years writing books and trying to get them published, and sending them out to authors or to publishers, and collecting rejection letters, sometimes very nice rejection letters, sometimes just form letters. And I finally came to the conclusion one day, and I was writing other things. I had a couple articles published in academic journals and things like that. So, I mean, I knew I was a good writer. I just came to the conclusion that people in New York who were in the big publishing houses weren't really interested in what I was writing. Most of what I was writing was local color stuff set in Upper Michigan. The first set of books I published is called the Marquette Trilogy, and they're like the history of Marquette from its founding through the sesquicentennial year in 1999. And I thought, why should somebody in New York decide if people in the Upper Peninsula get to read my books? That made absolutely no sense to me. And I thought, I'm going to just publish them myself, and there was all of this, there's a lot of stigma about self-publishing. There still is, but not anywhere near what there was, say, 20 years ago. And the very first rejection letter actually that I got back when I was a sophomore here at Northern, they said that the publishing company said they had just agreed to publish 2 other books, and they didn't have the budget to publish my book, but they really wanted to publish my book, and they'd be willing to split the costs with me. And I can't remember if they told me a number, but I want to say they said something like, if I would pay them $10,000, they would help publish it. And I thought, I don't have that kind of money. I work at McDonald's for minimum wage, which was like $3.35 an hour. So no, that's not going to happen. But as the years went by, and I was good at saving my money, and I thought, I'm gonna publish a book. I'm just gonna do it. And so I started doing research. I went to a local printer, and they gave me a quote that was way too much for what I could afford. And then I started looking online, and the whole self-publishing revolution was happening at this time. This was like back in 2005. And there were a lot of print-on-demand companies popping up all over the place. And I decided to publish by Universe. They seemed like the most affordable choice. And so for $1,000, they published my book. And I got, I think, 25 or 50 copies. And then I could start ordering my own copies from them. And I would pay a discount, I'd get a discount price, and I could resell them. So that's what I did, and that worked out. I found out as time went by and I became more educated about self-publishing, there were cheaper ways of doing it, more cost-effective ways of doing it. And so I learned to do that. I joined the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association, which had started in 1998. And excuse me, I learned a lot from them. And eventually I ended up becoming the president of that organization, which I have been now since 2008.
Okay.
So our whole purpose is to try to educate people on how to publish books, how to produce professional looking books, because there are lots of self-published books out there by people that don't know what they're doing, and so they are giving the rest of us a bad name. But you can self-publish and create a quality book, and there's still a lot of stigma about that. But I'll just point out that a lot of authors have self-published, have become very successful. And if you look back at the history of the publishing industry, it's really only been in the 20th century and beyond that traditional publishing has become the norm. Prior to that, people like Walt Whitman and Mark Twain, many other authors, they self-published their books.
Sure. It's kind of the same, I guess, if you think about the music industry.
Yes.
You're kind of circumventing all of the recording industry too. So I think that's probably a stigma that's going to be lessening even as time goes on.
Yeah, and I'm trying to train myself also to quit saying self-publishing, because we prefer to be called independent book publishers now, which is like there's independent films, independent music. That's really what we are.
Nice. So the organization, I know we're way off script here. The organization, do you accept student members, or?
Yeah, and anybody can join us. Our only real stipulation is we're UP focused, so we prefer that our members are either live in the UP or have a UP connection of some sort, or write about the UP. I mean, we don't want to, we have members that write all kinds of books, but we just kind of don't want to lose our UP identity either.
Sure, that's the whole point of the organization.
Right, yeah, I mean, you could go join the Florida Writers Association. You have no UP connection with Florida. There's organizations all over the country.
That's really good to know. Okay, so going back to college, what experiences did you have that you felt were particularly valuable for you while you were in college?
Well, obviously the instruction. I had wonderful professors at Northern. I mean, I've taught at, I've attended 2 schools and taught at 3, if you include teaching as a teaching assistant at Northern. And the community that I found at Northern was definitely the strongest. And when I talked to my friends who went to Northern, they said the same thing when they went to other schools. There was just more of a sense of community. I felt like I was part of the English department, even though I was a student. And then when I became a teaching assistant, I felt the whole English department was back. So that was probably the biggest thing. Beyond that, I had wonderful professors who knew their material. They were very knowledgeable about their material. They knew what they were talking about. They were very good about grading the papers and giving very good feedback. I think that helped me a lot with my writing. I mean, I still, today I edit books for other people, and I still hear their voices in my head. And I remember, like Maureen Andrews, for example, was one of my professors. I remember her writing split infinitive on my papers, and I learned not to write split infinitives anymore after that. I remember, other stories of other professors doing similar things, and that just made me remember not to make that mistake anymore. I just, it all contributed. Yeah, and I'm from Marquette, so that was a big benefit to me. I got to live at home while I went to school, so it was very affordable. And even after I've left, I still feel involved. I get asked to come and speak to classes sometimes, and I'm still friends with many of the people I went to school with here. And just you create lifelong friendships when you go to school.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Northern sense of community is, I don't know that it's that way everywhere else. I've only been at one other university, and it definitely wasn't that way there. So I have to agree with you on that one.
Well, I'll tell you one small thing. When I was at NMU, all the professors had their office hours, which I'm sure they still do, and they always had their doors open, and you could go in and see them, and that was amazing to me. And even when I was a teaching assistant and I had an office in the English department, all my friends who were teaching assistants, we were just always there. We were always in our offices. We were always available. Even if a student came in, it wasn't technically my office hours, I was there. The other schools I went to, you'd walk through the English departments and all the doors were shut. Some of them had posted what their office hours were, so if you want to talk to them, you probably have to knock on your door. They'd let you in, but it just felt like you were isolated.
Yeah, intrusive almost. Yeah. I think that's definitely helpful for students, especially in a major where you need that feedback and critique. I can tell you it was very similar in the art department. It's always nice to be able to have that open, honest communication. Okay, so you were talking about a little bit about what you're doing now. So tell me a little bit about, not just the organization that you're a part of, but what else are you involved with right
now? Yeah, as far as my day job, you mean?
Yeah, sure. Your day job.
Well, I'm an author still, so I'm busy writing books constantly and publishing them. And once I started doing that, people started asking me for help with their books. And I also, through belonging to the Upper Peninsula Publisher and Authors Association, we had a guest speaker come to speak one of the first years that I was a member. And to save the organization money, they asked if he could stay at somebody's house. And I said, sure. And I actually was the only member in Marquette at the time, or the only, maybe the only board member at the time. But I said, sure. And his name was Patrick Snow, and he lived out in Seattle. He's a publishing coach. And once I met him, he said, wow, you have a Ph.D. I'm like, well, yeah, and job market for PhDs is very good, and that's why I'm managing a call center right now. And he said, well, I need somebody to edit books for my clients, because he was busy helping people learn how to publish books. And of course, he wanted his clients' books to be professional. And so he asked if I would be interested in editing. I was definitely interested in doing that. That was more connected to what I wanted to do with my job, with my career, my background. And so I began editing books for his clients. I began editing books for other clients. I started writing book reviews for a company called Reader Reviews, which is based in Austin, Texas. And then I started doing written author interviews for them. And sometimes they would send me books to edit. I became the proofreader at the Marquette Monthly here in Marquette. And so I just, I thought, same thing with my desire to publish a book. I thought, I'm going to do it anyway. Same thing, I thought, I am not going to manage a call center. That is not what I went to school for. That is not what my dream is. And so I decided I'm going to be self-employed. And so that just is what happened. I just kept at it until it got to the point where I couldn't do both jobs. And so I quit my day job and I became self-employed. And so now I'm a book editor, and one client leads to another. I have some clients who I've edited 6 or 7 books for now. They just keep coming back, and then a lot of them refer me to other people. And so I have like constant work. It's just amazing. It just has built to the point where I now have my friend Larry Alexander, who I actually shared an office with at NMU when we were teaching assistants. He now helps me. And so I overflow editing to him, and he does book layout, and he designs websites for people. And so we've just created our own company. We call it Superior Book Productions. And it's
nice to have that partnership. I would imagine, like you said, if you've got lots of stuff coming in, and web design is a total different monster, I would say, than editing books and book layout.
Yeah, and authors need websites. If you're going to publish a book, you need a website to go to books. So we help out with that if they want a website. And it's good. I'm very happy with what I do. I like what I do, and it's a way to use my degree that 20 years ago when I graduated from Northern didn't exist really, because I have clients from all over the world, but through the magic of the internet, I'm able to communicate with them and get work from them. So I've had books from people in New Zealand, in Australia, and Hawaii, lots of books from Hawaii, West Coast.
That made me think, does that present an additional problem when you're looking at some of those different dialects? Like, you have to think about, is this how somebody from Australia would say it when you're editing things?
Yeah, those are definitely issues. The biggest one there is usually punctuation. And punctuation is a little bit different in British English speaking countries. And certain words I don't always know, but I just write comments to the authors in the margins of the manuscripts and send them back, and we sort it out. Or and I ask them too. Sometimes they're from Canada. I say, do you want this in British English or do you want it in American English? And 90% or so of readers aren't going to know the difference, or it's a very small difference, but it depends on where they think their book is going to sell.
Just the random thought I had as you were talking about that. Okay, so what does your typical day or week look like?
Typically, I work from home, so I don't have to commute, which is wonderful. Especially now that it's winter, it's snowing out. I usually get up and start working probably about 8:30 in the morning. And I usually my philosophy is get the hardest job out of it first. So usually in the morning, the first thing I'll do, depending on what I have to do that day, sometimes I have to do some writing for people, and I'll usually do that first. Sometimes I write book reviews. Sometimes I write the descriptions for the book covers for people. And I find that writing expends more energy than editing or proofreading. So I try to do the writing stuff first. A lot of the time what I'll do first in the morning is, if I get a new book, I do an edit sample for the author, where I usually will edit like the introduction, and then I'll pick a couple spots in the middle, maybe the first 2-3 pages of the chapter. And I edit those track changes on in Word, and then send it back to the author. And then based on that, I figure out how long it's going to take me to edit this book, and then what it's going to cost the author, and then just kind of give them some suggestions and some ideas what the time frame will be. So I usually do those sorts of things first thing in the morning. Then about 10 o'clock, I'll read my email. And a lot of my clients are on the West Coast in Hawaii, so I thought 10 o'clock, I don't want to read my email first thing, because sometimes you get lost. The whole day can be blown just by the email. So I'm like, I get my biggest task out of the way first, then I read the email. And then after that, I usually spend the rest of the day editing a book. I'll usually work like an hour. I'll edit for an hour, and then I'll check my email. Then I'll go back to editing for an hour. I'll eat lunch, and then I'll go back and edit for another hour, until the end of the day. I'm very responsive to my clients, so I do check my email like once every hour, but I've also found I don't leave my email open, because that'll just distract me. I forget what I'm doing. But I do answer my phone. If people call me, I do answer my phone. Unfortunately, that means I have lots of telemarketers that I tend to hang up on, or just like to, but usually I can tell which ones those are, and I don't answer them. But sometimes answering the phone sidetracks me. But I've also learned that, different clients like to communicate in different ways. So some of them are going to call me 3-4 times a day. And then others, I have some clients I've edited 6 or 7 books where I've never spoken to them once. So it's all through email. I also have had some clients text me, and I told them I don't text just because it's too hard. And I have big fingers, and I'm just not into texting. So.
I can't imagine trying to explain editing changes via text.
So I stick with email.
Okay. So what do you like best about what you do?
As far as editing goes, I just love playing with words, and I love. I get books by all kinds of people. I get lots of self-help books, lots of business books, some novels, memoirs, occasionally a poetry book. Most of the time I send the poetry books elsewhere, because I don't feel like I'm a poet. But sometimes they just want me to proofread it. I'll agree to that. But mostly I love playing with words. And I get lots of books by people, it's their first book, and they are writing, like, say, a self-help book, and their goal is to become a public speaker, or a consultant or a counselor or something. And this book is really not their goal. The book is more like their business card or their launching pad to their speaking career, say.
Sure.
So they really don't know much about writing, and then I have to rewrite a lot of their sentences. But even so, I love that. I love just like opening up a book and seeing it's like 87,000 words, and then I get in there and I start fixing it up, and I cut it down to like 65 or something, because they're just so wordy, or I just cut out things and try to make the sentences as concise as possible. I just really enjoy doing that. I mean, there are days when I kind of pull out my hair and think, how can you write a sentence like that? But for the most part, I enjoy doing that. And as far as being an author, I just get really excited about doing research for my books. I read lots of historical fiction books, some history books also. So I really enjoy doing that, and just finding out new information and putting it all together. And writing novels is my favorite thing to do. So I really enjoy that. And I enjoy I enjoy having people tell me that they like my books. I mean, that's what makes it all worthwhile for me. You know, I go to lots of like craft shows and different events where I sell my books or I speak to groups. And, you know, when people tell me that they like my books, I'm just, you know, it's just, I've had people invite me to their family reunions because they love my books so much. I've had people ask permission to take quotes from my books and put them on like plaques and things like that. And I'm just honored by that. So, and I always wanted to feel like writing could make a difference in people's lives. I always wanted, you know, in some way make people think about new things or see things in new ways. And I hope that my books do that.
Sure. Then on the flip side, what's your least favorite thing about what you do?
Probably the worst thing is I tend to be a workaholic, and it's hard for me to set boundaries and say stop or you know, think, oh, I'll call that person back later when they call me at 10 o'clock at night because they're in Hawaii and they forget that I'm on Eastern time. You know, so that's probably the hardest thing for me is just knowing when to set my boundaries and when to find a break, take a break from whatever I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, I every once in a while I have a client I feel a little frustrated with too, but then, you know, I think I try to put myself in their position, see things from their side. And, you know, we both basically want the same thing, to produce a really good book for the reader.
Yeah, I would imagine you have frustrating clients no matter where you are. So
yes,
it's probably better than working at a call center.
Yeah.
Okay. So if things were to fall into place, however you'd like them to, what do you think your future holds?
Well, I would really just want to keep doing what I'm doing in terms of especially in terms of writing books. I mean, ideally, I would love to just be able to spend all my time writing. Editing helps pay the bills. I mean, I sell a fair number of books, but not enough to completely support myself. But I would say, you know, the main thing is I just have so many books that I want to write that I want to make sure I have time to write them all before I die. So people are like, "Oh, you're young," but I'm like, "But you know, you don't understand. I have like 4 I'm working on right now, and I got plans for all these other books I want to do. And it just isn't enough time." So.
Okay. Well, going back, I guess, thinking you're putting yourself back in your college shoes, what do you wish you had known about before you graduated from any of your degrees?
Well, I think I think it's wonderful that we're making this video today because nobody really came and talked to students when I went to Northern about what we could do with our degrees. I think maybe once a year they would have a program about what you do with your English degree, and you would go, and it was pretty limited. I mean, most of us, it was either you could become a teacher or you could go into journalism. And there were probably other things that you could do, but I don't think any of us are really very aware of what those other things were. And a lot of the people I know ended up going into business or doing things that were completely different from the English degrees. But I would say that the most important thing to know is that they need good writers and good communicators no matter where you are. And like I said, I edit books for people from all kinds of walks of life. I've edited books for ministers, doctors, lawyers, millionaires, professional basketball players, you know, professional athletes. Some of them could not write a complete sentence to save their lives. And they need people to edit their books. And these people that run businesses, they need people who can actually communicate. They need people who can write an email that makes sense. They need people that can write marketing copy. And so I would say just, you know, think outside of the box. I mean, I could very well have just collected some rejection letters for my books and said, okay, I don't write very well. I guess I'm not going to get a book published and give up. But I didn't. I just kept at it. And I think, you know, through perseverance and through thinking outside the box, you can find a career for yourself. I mean, nobody back then told me how to become a book editor. And there weren't any programs at universities. I still don't think there are any programs at universities to help people become editors. I think there are some, like maybe summer workshops now that people can go to. But as a result, there are a lot of people out there pretending to be editors or claiming to be editors who really shouldn't be editing books either. And unfortunately, sometimes the work that those people do ends up coming to me because the author's happy with them and I have to fix what they did. But yeah, I mean, just whatever you want. I mean, this is the age of technology. It's amazing. You know, I mean, and when I started out, people said, "Oh, there's nothing here in Marquette for you." And I said, "I want to live in Marquette," but there really wasn't anything in Marquette for me at the time. And now, because of the internet, there is. When I quit working at the call center here locally, I felt like I'm bringing money into the UP economy because all these people are paying me, and that's money that I'm then spending here in Marquette. And by leaving my day job, I opened up a job for somebody else in Marquette to have. So,
sure, definite job creation.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anything else? You know, if you could give a piece of advice in addition to that, you know, or would that be your advice for graduating students to think outside of the box, or would you have any additional advice that you'd give them?
I would say also, just like I said, persevere at what you want to do, and stay focused on it. Don't put it off, and realize that you need to do it in very small steps. It's not going to happen to you overnight. I can't tell you how many authors I've edited books for who thought, you know, I'm going to publish a book. Oprah's going to call me. I'm going to be on her show. I'm going to sell 1 million copies. Life will be perfect. It doesn't happen that way. Even the people that get on Oprah, they spent years and years working to get to that level. And then I hear from lots of other people, "Oh, I want to write a book. I just don't have time." Well, I don't believe that for a minute. I spend 1 hour a day writing books, and people cannot believe it. I mean, I've published 16 books now, and people think, "You must spend all day writing." I'm like, "No, I spend like 8 to 10 hours a day editing people's books, and I spend 1 hour a day writing." And that's how I wrote 16 books. And there's going to be over 20 by the time I'm done. But I just set a daily goal of 500 words a day, and I write 500 words. And some days it's really hard to write 500 words. Some days I only get 200 or 300, and it's a real chore. Other days I feel inspired, and before I know I got 2,000 to 3,000 words. But you just have to work at it every day, and you have to set time aside and do it. And I really think having a schedule is very important, where you commit to that hour. One of the self-help books that I think I edited talked about, instead of making a commitment, making a promise to yourself, because you wouldn't break your promises to other people, so don't break the promise to yourself. So just promise yourself, "I'm going to do this," and then work at doing it. And whatever it is you want, you'll end up getting it. It may not be exactly the way that you think it will be. I mean, sure, I'm not on the New York Times bestseller list, but you know, now when I think about it, I don't really necessarily want it to be anyway, because I don't want to deal with all that fame and all the, I don't really want to go on book tours and have all of that publicity and all of that time and energy spent on that, when I could just be home writing, which is what I like doing best, or reading, or relaxing, or, you know, I'm not afraid of hard work by any means, but you know, your dream will come on, and you'll tweak it as you go along, but eventually you'll get what you want.
Sure. I feel like you're speaking to me directly, because I need to make time to studio, so I like that discipline and scheduling out a specific time. All right, well, I'm going to check the chat box and see if there's anybody who's got questions for you specifically. Okay, and if there's anybody who's got any questions for Tyler, if you want to type them into the chat box in the corner, we'll see if we can answer them. Okay, so and this one says, what do you think are important and maybe overlooked skills to have going into publishing?
I would say that of course, you need to know grammar and punctuation and those basics. I'm not sure she's talking about in terms of publishing books or in terms of editing.
She just says skills to have going into publishing. So
okay, well, like for example, if you want to work for a publishing company, I think a lot of it is you need to be gracious and be able to communicate with your clients, which may be the clients that you're working with. One thing I found myself that was just mind-blowing was have a good understanding of the different generations that exist and how they like to communicate. I find that baby boomers want to call me up on the phone and talk to me. People my generation, Generation X, they want to email me. Millennials want to text me. So, you be aware of the differences in generations and how they want to communicate with you. You really have to have excellent writing skills. I mean, that's obvious. And you're going to need to learn a little bit, at least, about technology. Like I personally had to train myself to learn a lot about. Like I don't do my own layout. I don't do my own ebooks. But I had to learn a little bit about those things to understand how they're made, where the mistakes happen, make decisions about how my books are going to look. So I would say, even if you're an editor, like I'm an editor, but I still look over all proofs of my clients' books for them. I learn a little bit, at least, about graphic design from people, a little bit about, like I built my own first website, so I had to learn a little bit about, code and that kind of stuff. So, don't just focus on your own area, but learn a little bit about all the jobs of the people around you that will also contribute to it, to creating a book.
What tech do you use? You kind of mentioned Microsoft Word. Is that what you use for editing the comments?
Yeah, I just use Microsoft Word and I write comments and margins. I turn the track changes feature on. Anything I change will come up one color, and then I send back to the client and they'll type. There's come back another color, so I know what they want.
Do you find you have to teach clients how to use that feature?
I do, yeah, and that's a good point. Patience is definitely required. I mean, I have some clients that get it right away. Some it's very easy. Some do not even know how to send an attachment through an email, and they'll send me 6 emails before it actually attaches, saying I get it. Some of them like to paste chapters into emails and send them to me. And then I have to copy and paste them back in the Word document. So I have to explain to them how to just send the book to me and what to do with the book before they send it to me. Another big thing is that a lot of them don't understand that their Word document is not their final book. It's not going to look that way. And so they get crazy with coloring and fonts and making it look very stylistic. And they send it to me and I just do a complete mass change, Times New Roman 12. One font, one size, easy to read. And I'm like, the layout person will help you with all that stuff at that point. But right now I need to be able to read it. So I don't need, things emphasized in purple and blue and in Gothic fonts and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So patience and definitely technology. All right. We've got a couple other questions here. So what's your biggest piece of advice for someone attempting to publish independently for the first time?
I would say make sure you get your book edited, because the biggest problem with self-publishing is books are not properly edited and have typos in them, and that just makes the rest of the self-publishing industry look bad. So make sure you get your book edited. Make sure that you find a professional to do your book cover. Do not let hurting other people's feelings get in your way. You may have your sister who's an artist that she wants to do your book cover. Get a professional instead. Don't let your mom or your brother who's an English major edit your book. Hire a professional to edit your book. Just because someone is an English major doesn't mean they're qualified to be an editor. I've had people hire librarians to edit their books. Librarians are not book editors, and they're not qualified to edit books. So make sure you find professional people. And in searching for those people, you may even want to, shop around a little bit. Like I tell clients a lot of the times, if they, I can do an edit sample for them. Give them a quote and they can see what I do, but they may want to look around and get edit samples from 2 or 3 other editors and see which one is going to be best. And editors charge a wide range of prices. That doesn't necessarily mean the one charges the most is the best, or the one charges the least is the poorest. You just want to make sure that you compare them and you see what kind of quality they'll have. And there are all kinds of books out there that you can read. The best known one is Dan Pointer's self-publishing. But there are all kinds of books on self-publishing out there.
Okay. Elizabeth says she has to leave her class, but thank you. It was very interesting and helpful. So that was what I thought was the last question. So it looks like that's all the questions we have, unless anybody's got any more. No? Okay, cool. Well, I want to thank you again for coming in and talking with us. I'm really glad that we had some students in on this call. It'll be posted up online. I can send you the link too.
All right, great.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Keep doing a great job.